most all of us know about Jim Hansen, Lester Brown, all these people, but not as many people have heard of this next guy. His name is Rick Piltz. I first learned about Rick in a DVD, a climate documentary called Everything's Cool. He stars in that with Bill McKibben. And this fellow worked during the Bush administration to assimilate all the information on climate, and he noticed that the Bush administration was basically deep-sixing that information. He finally got to the point where he literally gave up his job in protest and went public to blow the whistle on what was happening. And somebody that gives up their job to do this really takes courage, and I really admire him. And I want to have people later blow some whistles in honor of Rick Piltz. Please welcome him. He's the head of a Climate Science Watch, an advocacy project here in Washington that works to expose the ugly global warming denial machine and its nefarious tobacco industry-like war on climate. Rick Piltz.
Hey, Rick! All right. Right up there.
Thank you, Roger. Before he was inaugurated, President Obama once said to reporters that he believed what the scientists have been telling us for years now, that climate change is, he said, a matter of urgency and of national security. He said, the time for denial and delay are over. He knows we're on a dangerous path. We know it. We know it because of what we are learning from the leading scientific experts. They're the intellectual bedrock of this problem. But the scientists can't solve the problem. They can't manage the risk that they're describing to us. That's something the people and leaders have to do. The stress of climate disruption will be added to societies that are already very stressed in the U.S. and worldwide. It is a global problem, and people here and abroad who are already the most vulnerable, who are least responsible for causing the problem, are likely to be hardest hit by the impacts. If there were no threat of climate disruption, then transforming the energy system would be a less urgent challenge. The promise and the advantages of clean energy would still be there, but the potential consequences of climate disruption are what lends great urgency to the energy revolution. The president appears to know this, but he doesn't say it. Think about it. As president, he has never spoken to the American people, never given a single speech in which he says why climate change makes it urgent to transform the energy system. Really, no president has done this yet. He doesn't say the leading climate scientists, the most credible experts, the National Academy of Sciences, the people we need to pay serious attention to, the leading scientific assessments tell us that we need to be concerned about the impacts of climate change on our way of life. If we and the rest of the world continue with unchecked burning of coal and oil in our power plants and transportation, apparently he doesn't find it politically convenient to speak truthfully about this and to keep this message in front of people. Too much public confusion, too much scientific illiteracy to cut through, too much pushback from interests that don't want to give up control. But how can we solve the problem of global climate change without talking about the problem of global climate change? How can we prepare for what may be inevitable dangerous climate impacts if we don't talk about them and the need for strategic preparedness for long-term change? And if it's not worth talking about and preparing for, then why is it worth trying to avoid? We will be limited in our ability to prepare. We will be limited in our ability to adapt. That's why we don't have the luxury of taking forever to change the energy system. It's not only about green jobs, it's about our ability to use scientific intelligence to manage our future. And without a much better public understanding of what is in store for us under climate conditions different from what civilization has developed under, how will the political motivation and public support for taking the needed steps be developed and sustained over the coming years, over the coming decades? How will the level of effort needed to rise to the challenge be there unless people are thinking about the consequences of inaction? Mr. President, find a way to give the people some straight talk about what we're facing. Stand with the scientists. And when you do, of course, you will have to stand up to the corporate interests that don't want to be regulated and don't want the system to change. You have to stand up to their denialist political mouthpieces who will attack and obfuscate at every turn. Mr. President, stand up to it. Stand with the people who are ready to move forward, and together we'll have a fighting chance.